What if the only person who could stop a millionaire's murder was his 8-year-old daughter? Stay with us. This true story will shock you, inspire you, and remind you that heroes come in the smallest forms. The golden afternoon light streamed through the towering windows of the Anderson estate, catching specks of dust as they floated lazily in the air. Everything looked peaceful, quiet even, as if time itself had slowed for just a moment. Upstairs, 8-year-old Lily Anderson sat cross-legged on her bed, arranging a small collection of seashells on her windowsill. She and her mother had gathered them during their last family trip to Cape Cod. 2 summers ago, her favorite one, a soft pink conch, still smelled faintly of salt water. That shell always made her feel close to her mum. The room was quiet, save for the ticking of a small clock by her bed, when her father's voice rang out from downstairs. "Lily, sweetheart, can you come down for a moment? I have something important to tell you." There was an unfamiliar lilt of excitement in his tone. James Anderson, her father, wasn't the kind of man who usually got excited. Not since the funeral. Not since everything changed. Lily gently placed the pink shell back in its little velvet pouch and stood up. Her footsteps were light as she descended the grand staircase. From the top step, she could see her father pacing the living room floor. He looked different, lighter somehow, as though he had taken off an invisible coat of sadness he'd been wearing for 2 years. "There's my girl," James said, beaming when he saw her. He opened his arms, and Lily stepped into them. He held her tightly, a little longer than usual, before guiding her to the couch. "I have some news," he began, his voice full of a hopeful energy Lily hadn't heard in a long time. "I think it's going to make both of us very happy." Lily tilted her head. Her big brown eyes searched his face, trying to understand what could possibly bring this much joy to someone who had been so hollow for so long. "You remember Isabella Grant, don't you?" James asked. Lily nodded slowly. Isabella was the woman her father had been seeing for the past few months. She had met her several times at family dinners and company events. Isabella was tall, graceful, always perfectly dressed. She had a smile that dazzled, but something about it never reached her eyes. "Well," James said, sitting straighter, "I asked her to marry me and she said yes. Isn't that wonderful?" The room seemed to shift around Lily. Her breath caught in her throat as the words settled in. "You're getting married?" she asked softly. "In 3 months," James replied, squeezing her hand. "I know it might seem fast, but when you know Isabella already has ideas for how we can redecorate the guest room and take cooking classes together. Isn't that fun?" Lily forced a smile. Her mind buzzed with questions, worries, and a strange tightness in her chest she couldn't explain. She wanted her dad to be happy. She really did. But something deep inside her stirred, something uneasy. "Are you sure, Dad?" she asked, her voice small. James chuckled gently. "When you're older, you'll understand. Sometimes love just happens. Isabella brings light back into this house, Lily. And don't you want that? Don't you want us to feel alive again?" Lily looked around the room. Her mother's pictures still stood proudly on the piano. Her laughter hadn't echoed through the house in years, but her presence lingered in every corner. Now, suddenly, everything felt like it might be swept away. "I want you to be happy, Dad," she whispered. He pulled her close again, his voice thick with emotion. "We're going to be a family again, Lily. Everything is going to be perfect now." But Lily wasn't sure. But Lily... As her father spoke about floral arrangements and venue options, the weight in her chest only grew heavier. She didn't understand why Isabella's name made her stomach twist. She didn't know why her mind kept circling back to that strange moment last week when she caught Isabella talking sharply to the housekeeper when she thought no one was listening. As evening approached, Lily returned to her room and sat quietly by the window. Below, the gardens bloomed in shades of white and pink, already being prepared for the engagement celebration scheduled for the weekend. She clutched the pink conch shell in her hands. "I miss you, Mom," she whispered. "I think something's wrong." But nobody will believe me. A small breeze passed through the window screen, lifting the curtain just enough for the light to touch her face. It was the kind of moment that made a little girl feel both very small and very brave all at once. And though Lily didn't know it yet, that uneasy feeling inside her was not just fear. It was instinct, and it would soon lead her to uncover a truth more dangerous than anything she could have imagined. 2 days after her father's big announcement, the Anderson estate was bustling with preparations. Florists, caterers, and decorators moved like a quiet army through the grand halls, transforming the home for the upcoming engagement party. White roses were being arranged in tall vases, champagne flutes lined up on silver trays, and elegant strings of lights were woven through the garden's wrought-iron trellises. To most people, it all looked like a fairy tale, but to Lily Anderson, it felt like her world was being rearranged without her consent. She watched the activity from the landing of the grand staircase, clutching the banister with small fingers. Her eyes followed Isabella Grant as she moved through the house, issuing instructions with a sweet voice and a fixed smile. She complimented the floral arrangements, praised the catering team, and laughed at the jokes of James Anderson's business partners. But when she turned to speak to Carla Reyes, the longtime housekeeper, her tone changed tight, clipped, cold. Lily noticed. That night, James sat across from Lily at the dinner table, glowing with happiness. "Isabella brought you something," he said, gesturing toward the hallway. Isabella stepped into the room wearing a soft blue dress, her hair cascading in waves. She carried a small velvet box and a gleam in her eyes. "I thought we should start our new chapter with a special gift," she said, opening the box to reveal a delicate silver bracelet with tiny star-shaped charms. "May I?" Lily hesitated before extending her wrist. Isabella fastened the bracelet gently, smiling with the precision of someone who had practiced in front of a mirror. "It's beautiful," Lily said softly, her voice almost drowned out by the silence. "I knew you'd love it," Isabella said. She tucked a loose strand of Lily's hair behind her ear. "Your father tells me you're quite the little artist. Maybe we can redecorate your room together, a fresh start." Lily smiled politely, but her heart wasn't in it. She looked across the table at her father, whose eyes were filled with hope. That was the hardest part. He looked so happy. The next day, the house filled with family. Aunts, uncles, and old friends arrived for the engagement dinner. Among them was Lily's favorite person in the world, besides her father, Aunt Margaret. Margaret Collins was her mother's sister. She had the same sharp wit, the same love of jazz, and the same warm hugs that wrapped you up like a soft blanket. When she arrived, she pulled Lily into her arms and whispered, "You doing okay, kiddo?" Lily nodded, but didn't speak. Later, during dinner, Aunt Margaret leaned toward James and murmured, "6 months. Really?" "Don't start," James replied softly. "She makes me happy. That's all that matters." Margaret said nothing, but her eyes didn't leave Isabella for the rest of the evening. When dessert was served, Lily escaped to the kitchen, needing a moment of quiet. The soft clink of dishes and murmurs from the staff provided a small comfort. She stood by the counter, tracing the condensation on her glass of water. A moment later, Aunt Margaret joined her. "How are you feeling about all this, sweetheart?" she asked casually, taking a bite of a tart. Lily shrugged. "Dad's happy." "That's not what I asked," Margaret said, watching her closely. Lily hesitated. "She's different when Dad's not around." Margaret's expression sharpened. "Different how?" Before Lily could answer, Isabella appeared in the doorway, smiling as always. But something about the way she looked at her made Lily's skin crawl. "There you are," Isabella said smoothly. "James is looking for you both. He wants to toast the 3 most important women in his life." Margaret's lips pressed into a line. Isabella walked over to Lily, resting her hand on the girl's shoulder just a little too firmly. "Shall we, darling?" she whispered. As they walked back toward the dining room, Lily glanced over her shoulder at her aunt, who gave her a small nod of reassurance. Margaret had noticed someone finally saw what she had been feeling. The next morning, Lily woke early and wandered into the piano room. Her mother's framed photo still sat on top of the instrument, next to a small vase of dried flowers. She touched the frame gently, her fingers brushing over the glass. Behind her, footsteps approached. "I see you're still clinging to the past," Isabella said softly, her voice unusually low. Lily turned around. Isabella stood in the doorway, her expression unreadable. "You know," she continued, walking toward the piano, "it's not healthy to dwell on someone who's gone. It makes it harder to move forward." "She was my mom," Lily replied, her voice steady. "And I'm not trying to replace her," Isabella said quickly. "But your father needs to heal. We all do." Lily watched her carefully. Isabella leaned down, her eyes level with Lily's. "You want your dad to be happy, don't you?" Lily nodded slowly. "Then let's not make things more difficult than they need to be." That night, Lily wrote in her journal something she hadn't done in weeks. She began to list everything she had noticed. The way Isabella's smile never quite reached her eyes. The moments when her tone turned sharp. The way she touched everything in the house like she already owned it. She didn't know exactly what was wrong, but she knew something was wrong. And while no one else might believe her just yet, Lily was determined to find out what Isabella Grant was really hiding behind that perfect smile. It started with a gut feeling. Lily Anderson didn't know what to call it exactly. She wasn't sure if it was her mother whispering from somewhere far away, or just that little voice inside her that always got louder when something didn't feel right. But whatever it was, it told her that Isabella Grant was not who she seemed. And so, one quiet afternoon, Lily made a decision. She was going to find out the truth. She called it Operation Truth, and she started it the way her favorite book detectives did, with a notebook. She found an old one in her mum's desk drawer, the cover still smelling faintly of lavender. On the first page, in her neatest handwriting, she wrote, "Operation Truth, Investigating Isabella." Underneath, she listed her reasons for starting the investigation. "Isabella talks differently to Dad than she does to other people. She wants to take down Mum's photos. She lied about rescheduling my recital. She's always on her phone and whispers when she thinks I'm not around. The last item was added after something strange happened that morning." Her school day had ended early, and Isabella had agreed to pick her up. It was raining soft but steady, so Lily waited under the front awning of the school, watching the cars line up at the curb. That's when she saw it. Across the street, parked beneath a maple tree, was a sleek black car. She wouldn't have thought anything of it, except she caught a glimpse of the driver, Isabella. But she wasn't alone. Sitting beside her in the driver's seat was a man Lily had never seen before. They were talking closely, too closely. Then, before Lily could convince herself she was mistaken, Isabella leaned forward and kissed him. Lily's mouth fell open. Her heart thudded hard against her chest. She fumbled for the small tablet in her backpack and, hands shaking, managed to snap a blurry photo through the rain-streaked glass. A second later, Isabella opened the passenger door and stepped out of the black car. The man stayed inside. By the time Isabella pulled up in her red convertible to pick Lily up, barely 15 minutes later, her expression was perfectly composed. Not a hair out of place, not a trace of guilt in her voice. "So sorry I'm late, sweetheart," she said, smiling. "Traffic was dreadful." Lily didn't answer. She simply climbed into the car, clutching her backpack tightly, her tablet still hidden inside. As they drove away, her eyes flicked to the spot where the black car had been parked. It was gone. That night, after dinner, Lily sat at her desk pretending to do math homework. But in reality, she was updating her notebook. New entry, Friday. Isabella seen kissing unknown man in black car at 3:12 p.m. She lied and said it was traffic, took a photo, blurry, but clear enough to recognize her. She didn't know what to do with the information yet. Her first thought was to show it to her dad, but then she remembered how quickly he had dismissed her worries before. He wanted so badly to believe in Isabella's goodness, he wouldn't even consider that she might be lying. So Lily decided to gather more. Over the next week, she became a quiet shadow in her own house. She listened at doors, peeked around corners, and started paying attention to the things adults didn't notice. She noticed, for instance, that Isabella's mood changed drastically when her father wasn't home. The warm voice and gentle hands became cold commands and sharp gestures. She was polite to guests but impatient with staff. She rarely stayed in the same room as Lily unless James was present, and when she did, her compliments felt like knives wrapped in silk. On Monday, Lily overheard her speaking harshly on the phone in the guest room she had claimed as her office. "I told you not to call during the day," Isabella hissed. "The girl is watching me." She paused. "No, she doesn't suspect anything serious, but she's nosy, just like her mother." Lily's breath caught in her throat. She crouched behind the hallway wall, heart pounding. She scribbled the exchange down as soon as Isabella ended the call. "Suspect phone call. Monday. Called me nosy. Said I'm watching her. I am. Mentioned Mum. Not kindly." By Wednesday, she had enough notes to fill 10 pages. That afternoon, while her father was out running errands and Isabella was distracted with floral arrangements, Lily sneaked into the study. She used her mum's birthday as the password to James's computer, something she knew by heart, and searched for Isabella online. It took a while, but eventually she found something. An old article about a tech gala 3 years ago in New York. The focus was on a corporate sponsor, but in the background of one of the photos was a familiar silhouette Isabella, wearing different hair and a slightly altered smile, standing next to the same man from the black car. Lily took a screenshot and emailed it to herself. Later that night, during dinner, she brought it up as casually as she could. "Who's the man you were talking to across from school the other day?" she asked. Isabella's fork paused midway to her mouth. "What man?" "The one in the black car," Lily said. "Oh," Isabella laughed softly, her voice light. "That was just Tyler, the wedding planner. He had a question about the cake. Nothing for you to worry about." But Lily saw the flicker in her eyes. The brief flash of panic before she recovered. She wrote it down. Lie confirmed. Wednesday dinner. Isabella said, "Tyler, the wedding planner." She lied again. "She's scared." That night, Lily sat on her bed, flipping through the pages of her notebook. Her hands were shaking, but her resolve had never been stronger. She didn't have all the answers. Not yet. But she had questions that needed asking, and she was determined to protect her dad even if no one believed her yet. The sky outside the Anderson estate was overcast, as if the clouds themselves had sensed the tension building inside its walls. Rain tapped against the tall windows like a clock counting down. Lily Anderson sat at the edge of her bed, her notebook clutched in her lap, her tablet glowing softly beside her. She had gathered everything she could: blurry photos, overheard conversations, screenshots, and handwritten notes. It wasn't perfect, but it was real. She took a deep breath, walked down the wide staircase, and knocked on the door of her father's study. James Anderson looked up from a stack of papers. "Hey, Lilybug, what's up?" She hesitated, standing in the doorway like she was afraid the wind might carry her words away. "Dad, I need to talk to you." "It's important." He immediately set down his pen. "Of course. Come in." She sat in the leather chair across from his desk, legs dangling above the floor. Her heart pounded so hard she felt it in her ears. "It's about Isabella," she said. James's smile faded just slightly. "What about her?" "She's not who you think she is." He blinked, then leaned forward, concern rising in his face. "Lily, what do you mean?" "She acts different when you're not around. She's cold mean, and she lies she's been meeting with a man. I saw them kiss. I have proof." Before he could speak, She picked up her tablet and opened the gallery, showing him the blurry photo of Isabella in the black car with the unknown man, Colin. Then she opened the screenshot of the article from the tech gala. "This is her," Lily said, tapping the screen. 3 years ago, with the same man, she said his name was Tyler. But I heard her call him something else on the phone. I don't think he's a wedding planner, Dad. I think he's her boyfriend. James looked at the screen. His brows furrowed. "Sweetheart, this photo is so blurry. That could be anyone, and this article is from years ago." "But look at her eyes," Lily insisted. "It's her." He sighed. "Lily, I know this is a big change. It's been hard since Mom passed, I get that. But maybe what you're feeling is just jealousy or fear of things changing. Isabella has tried very hard to make things work with you." Lily's stomach sank. Her hands gripped the arms of the chair. "It's not just feelings," she whispered. "She's hiding something." James softened his tone. "I believe you're scared, and I believe you think something's wrong. But we have to be careful before making accusations, especially ones this serious." Lily wanted to scream. Instead, she just nodded slowly. "Okay." But inside, she felt her heart break a little. That night, she went to bed early, curling under the blankets with her notebook tucked close to her chest. She didn't hear the soft knock at the door. She didn't hear the footsteps cross her room, but she did hear the voice. "I know you're awake, Lily." Her eyes shot open. Isabella was sitting at the edge of her bed, her voice sweet but hollow. "What did you tell your father?" Lily stayed silent. "Come on now," Isabella said. "You went running to him with your little stories, didn't you?" Still, Lily said nothing. Isabella's fingers gently tugged at the edge of the blanket. "You know, people don't like children who make trouble. They get labeled as difficult, as liars. They get sent away." "I'm not lying," Lily said, barely above a whisper. "No?" Isabella smiled, but her eyes were cold. "Well, it won't matter soon anyway, because after the wedding, everything changes." She stood, walking toward the door. Before she left, she paused. "Oh, and Lily, you really should be more careful about where you leave your little notebook. Someone might take it." The door clicked shut behind her. Lily sat frozen in place for several minutes. She reached under her pillow where she had hidden the notebook earlier that evening. It was gone. Panic surged through her chest. She scrambled from bed, checked her desk drawer, the bookshelf, even her backpack. Nothing. She collapsed onto the floor, arms wrapped around her knees. For the first time in weeks, she didn't feel brave. The next morning, James noticed something was wrong. "You okay?" he asked over breakfast. Lily nodded but didn't look up from her cereal. Isabella floated into the kitchen wearing a white silk robe and humming softly. She kissed James on the cheek and poured herself coffee like she didn't have a care in the world. Later that day, while Isabella was out at a wedding dress fitting, Lily checked the guest room turned office. The door was locked. She went to the master bedroom and quietly opened Isabella's jewelry box. There it was, tucked beneath a layer of earrings and Perl's notebook. She flipped through it. Pages had been torn out. Several entries had been scribbled over in red pen. One page had been rewritten entirely in neat adult handwriting. "Isabella loves our family. Lily is learning to accept her." Lily's hands shook. She knew she couldn't keep this to herself anymore. Her father wouldn't believe her, but maybe someone else would. She texted her Aunt Margaret, "I need to talk to you. It's about Dad. It's an emergency." The moment Lily's message was sent, her tablet slipped into sleep mode, and she tucked it beneath her pillow like a secret treasure. The weight on her chest didn't disappear, but it shifted slightly, like she had finally handed part of it to someone strong enough to carry it with her. Aunt Margaret didn't respond right away. Lily spent the rest of the day pretending everything was fine. She helped Carla Reyes fold napkins for the upcoming dinner party. She sat through Isabella's chatter about custom table linens and chocolate fountains. She smiled when her father walked by, and asked if she was excited about the big day. She lied. That night, as rain pattered lightly against the roof, a text buzzed through her tablet at 11:07 p.m. "Meet me at the park tomorrow, after school. Don't tell anyone, Aunt M." Lily read it twice. She could hardly believe it. Someone believed her. The next day, when Isabella sent Carla to pick her up from school, Lily told her she had forgotten a book and would catch up later. Once Carla pulled away, Lily dashed out the back gate of the school and made her way down the quiet residential block toward the park, 2 streets over. Her hood was pulled up, and her backpack straps dug into her shoulders as she walked quickly beneath the grey afternoon sky. A silver sedan pulled up just as she reached the park's swing set. The window rolled down. "Hop in, kiddo," Margaret Collins said. Lily climbed into the front seat, rain misting her face. She buckled her seatbelt but said nothing. Margaret didn't start the car. She just looked at her niece with those sharp, familiar eyes that always seemed to know everything. "You want to tell me what's going on?" she asked gently. Lily pulled her tablet from her bag. "It's Isabella. She's not who she says she is. She's planning to hurt Dad, I have proof." Margaret's jaw tightened, but she didn't interrupt. She let Lily talk about the fake smiles, the harsh whispers, the man in the car, the notebook that went missing and reappeared with rewritten pages. She showed the blurry photo of Isabella kissing the stranger, the screenshot from the old Gala article, and the now-altered journal she'd carefully photographed before Isabella had a chance to destroy everything. When Lily finished, her hands were trembling. She didn't realize she was crying until her aunt handed her a tissue from the glove compartment. "I tried to tell Dad," Lily said, voice cracking. "He didn't believe me. He thinks I'm just sad. Or jealous." Margaret didn't speak for a moment. She looked straight ahead, her fingers tapping the steering wheel in thought. "I've had my doubts about Isabella since day one," she said finally. "Something about her always felt off, too polished. Too perfect." "You believe me?" Lily asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "I believe something isn't right," Margaret replied. "And I believe you've done everything you could to keep your dad safe. But now we need help." She reached into the glove box again, this time pulling out a business card and handing it to Lily. "Frank Delgado, private investigator. He helped me once when a client's trust was being stolen," Margaret said. "He's smart, quiet, and very good at his job." Lily stared at the card, a flicker of hope starting to glow inside her. "What do we do now?" she asked. Margaret checked the time. "First, I'm going to get you home before Isabella realizes you're gone. Then I'll call Delgado." "We'll find out who Isabella really is." As they neared the estate, Margaret slowed a block away. "This stays between us for now, okay?" she said. "Act normal around Isabella. Don't let her know we suspect anything." Lily nodded solemnly. "What if we can't prove it in time?" she whispered. "The wedding is in 3 weeks." Margaret glanced at her niece with a determined look. "Then we stop it another way." That night, Lily sat on the edge of her bed, staring out the window at the same garden her mother used to tend. Everything looked so beautiful, so peaceful. But she now understood that danger didn't always come with loud footsteps or flashing lights. Sometimes it wore a diamond ring and a carefully chosen smile. Meanwhile, Margaret met with Frank Delgado in a dimly lit booth at a cafe across town. She handed him a manila envelope filled with the photos and documents Lily had collected. "I want to know everything about Isabella Grant," she said. "Every name she's ever used, every place she's lived. Every man she's been with." Delgado nodded. "Consider it done." Back at the Anderson estate, Isabella peeked into Lily's room later that night. "Sweet dreams, sweetheart," she said from the doorway, voice sugar-sweet. Lily didn't respond. She simply stared up at the ceiling, hands gripping her blanket tightly. She had done her part. Now, it was time for the truth to catch up. St. Andrew's Chapel stood bathed in soft morning sunlight. White roses framed every pew, delicate organ music drifted through the air, and a soft buzz of excitement filled the space. It was, by all appearances, a perfect wedding day. But for Lily Anderson, nothing about it felt right. She stood in a side chamber just off the main sanctuary, wearing a pale yellow junior bridesmaid dress and holding a small bouquet with trembling fingers. Her stomach twisted in knots. It was happening. In mere minutes, her father, James Anderson, would be standing at the altar, waiting for Isabella Grant to walk down the aisle. And if no one stopped it, he'd be sealing his fate with a woman who wasn't just hiding something, she was planning something. Lily's phone buzzed in her small purse. She slipped it out and saw a message from Aunt Margaret. "He's on his way. Sit tight." Her heart pounded. It had been 10 days since she first showed Margaret everything. And just last night, Mr. Frank Delgado, the private investigator, had confirmed what they feared. Isabella Grant didn't exist. Her real name was Vanessa Hill, and she had a long, well-concealed history of marrying wealthy men who mysteriously died within a year of the wedding. The most recent one, a tech investor in Arizona, had slipped down his own marble staircase. No charges were filed. No suspicions were raised. Vanessa vanished weeks later under a new name, and now she was about to marry Lily's father. Aunt Margaret had begged James to meet that morning before the ceremony, but he refused. "I'm not cancelling the happiest day of my life over gossip," he had said. Lily clutched her bouquet tighter. The music changed. The doors to the chapel opened, and guests rose as Isabella Vanessa stepped into view. She was radiant in her designer wedding gown, glowing in soft light, her expression composed and flawless, but Lily saw it for what it was now. A mask. She followed behind as the bridal party entered. Each step down the aisle felt heavier than the last. Lily took her place near the front, her gaze fixed on her father. James looked dashing in his tuxedo, and more than that, he looked joyful, finally whole again after years of grief. He didn't know. He couldn't see what Lily and Margaret had discovered. The ceremony began. The officiant spoke of love, of healing, of second chances. Vanessa smiled as though she'd earned all of it. Lily's breath grew shallow. She looked to the back of the church. Margaret wasn't there. Delgado wasn't there. Her pulse quickened. The officiant's voice rang out. "If anyone here knows of any reason this couple should not be joined in holy matrimony, speak now or forever hold your peace." Silence. No one moved. Lily's knees nearly buckled. She glanced at the doors once more. Still no Margaret. And then she realized it had to be her. She took one small step forward. Then another. She cleared her throat, but it came out barely audible. The officiant was about to continue when Lily's voice finally rose shaky but strong. "Stop! You can't marry her, Dad." A collective gasp rippled through the chapel. James turned in stunned disbelief. "Lily?" "She's not who she says she is," Lily said, her voice louder now. "Her real name is Vanessa Hill. She's already done this before twice. She marries men like you, takes out insurance policies, and then they have accidents." More gasps. Guests began whispering. Vanessa's eyes locked onto Lily with a flicker of alarm, but her mask stayed on. "Sweetheart," James said, stepping toward her. "What are you talking about?" "Check the teddy bear," Lily said quickly, her voice trembling. "The one Mom gave me, I hid copies of everything in there. Her real name, the old photos. The news articles, everything." The room filled with murmurs. All eyes turned to the bride. Vanessa's expression faltered. She turned to James. "She's confused," she said, her voice measured. "She's lashing out. I know this is hard on her." "No," Lily snapped. "I tried to tell you. Aunt Margaret tried." "You wouldn't listen." James turned to the wedding planner. "Go now. Get the teddy bear." Vanessa took a step back. "James, don't do this." He looked at her closely. "Is it true?" he asked softly. Vanessa Hill. Vanessa didn't answer. A moment later, the wedding planner returned with the bear. James unzipped the seam at the back and pulled out an envelope. Inside were photos, articles, and a notarized document from Delgado confirming her real identity. He read them in silence. When he looked up, the joy on his face was gone, replaced by something else: grief, anger, betrayal. "You lied to me," he said quietly. Vanessa's composure cracked. "You stupid child," she spat toward Lily, no longer bothering to pretend. From the back of the church, Margaret stepped in with Detective Harold Whitaker. "Vanessa Hill," he said calmly, showing his badge. "You're under investigation for fraud, identity theft, and conspiracy. You need to come with me." Vanessa bolted. Gasps turned into shouts as she ran down the aisle, but 2 officers were already blocking the exit. She was caught, handcuffed, and led out of the church to a chorus of stunned whispers. James sank to his knees at the altar. Lily ran to him. He pulled her into a tight embrace. "I'm so sorry, Lily, I should have listened." She buried her face in his shoulder. "You're safe now. That's all that matters." Around them, the wedding guests watched in stunned silence. What had started as a fairy tale had become something very different. But for Lily and her father, it was the moment they reclaimed their story, together. The Anderson estate stood quiet under a blanket of moonlight, the garden still littered with white petals from what should have been a wedding. Earlier that day, police cars, flashing cameras, and murmurs of disbelief had surrounded the property. Now, all that remained was silence, the kind of silence that feels too heavy, too deliberate. Inside, James and Lily Anderson moved slowly through the house, as if afraid to disturb the walls themselves. The ceremony had been called off. Vanessa Hill, known as Isabella Grant, had been taken away in handcuffs, still hurling threats as she was loaded into the back of a cruiser. And yet, the fear hadn't truly left. That night, James double-checked every lock on every door and activated the estate's security system for the first time in years. 2 uniformed officers had agreed to patrol the area through the weekend, just in case. "Dad, do you think she'll come back?" Lily asked, as she stood in the hallway outside his room, already dressed in her pajamas. James paused. He didn't lie. "I don't know. But we're safe now, and we're being watched over." Lily nodded, but her eyes stayed wide long after she climbed into bed. She left her bedside lamp on and kept her tablet within reach. She also retrieved the small metal baseball bat she had once kept under her bed during thunderstorms. It sat now, hidden beneath her blanket, a poor shield against what her heart still feared. Downstairs, James paced the study, reading through the police report one more time. Detective Whitaker had assured him the investigation would hold Vanessa's real identity was confirmed. Her past husbands, her fake aliases, the insurance trail, it was all finally coming together. But something in James's gut still twisted. At 2:17 a.m., Lily awoke to a sound. It wasn't loud, a faint metallic clink, like a lock being forced open. She sat up in bed, listening. Nothing. Then came another sound. A creak on the floorboards just outside her room. Lily's breath caught in her throat. She slipped out of bed and crept toward the door, pressing her ear to it. Voices. Low, urgent. A woman's whisper, unmistakable. "He's upstairs." "But the girl may be awake, be careful." Lily's blood ran cold. It was Vanessa. Her voice was quieter, but not weaker. More controlled, more dangerous. She hadn't run. She hadn't disappeared. She had come back. Lily turned, heart pounding, and quietly slid her window open. The trellis below was old but sturdy enough. It had once supported her mother's climbing roses. Now, it might need to carry something far more precious. But just before she climbed out, she saw something through the window. A shadow moved in the garden. Someone was standing guard. There were 2 of them, Vanessa wasn't alone. Lily quickly shut the window again and locked it. Her hands shook as she backed away from the glass. She grabbed her bat and moved toward her closet, but then stopped. No, her dad. He was down the hall. He didn't know. He had no idea that danger was already inside the house. She slipped into the hallway just as a figure emerged from the shadows of the guest room. A man. Tall, broad-shouldered, face obscured by a black hoodie. He didn't see her at first. He moved toward her father's room with slow, deliberate steps. Lily ran the other way, barefoot on the hardwood floors, and burst into her father's room. "Dad, wake up!" she shouted. "She's here! Vanessa's here!" James bolted upright. His eyes were still adjusting when Lily slammed the door and locked it. A loud thud hit the other side. "Open the door, James!" Vanessa's voice called through, now cold and vicious. "Let's talk, just the three of us." James grabbed his phone. "I'm calling 911. "The alarm didn't go off," Lily said. "She must have disabled it." Another hard thud rattled the frame. The door was sturdy, but not built for resistance. James reached into his closet and grabbed a heavy golf trophy, the only weapon he could find. He moved Lily behind him and backed them into the adjoining bathroom. "Go out the window," he whispered. "Down the trellis, I'll hold them off." But before either could move, the bedroom door cracked open with a splintering crash. Vanessa stood there, hair wild, dress torn at the hem. The man beside her held a crowbar and looked like he'd done this before. "This doesn't have to be messy," Vanessa said. "You sign a document, you disappear quietly, we leave the girl out of it." "You're insane," James replied. "Maybe," she smiled. "But I'm also committed." She stepped forward, a gun now visible in her hand. Lily clutched the bat, heart hammering in her chest. From downstairs, the faint sound of a siren rose. "Police," James said calmly. "They're already on the way." The man hesitated. "We said no killing." "No witnesses, Colin," Vanessa snapped. So that was his name, Colin Brooks. The man from the car, the one who had stood beside her at every twisted turn. Vanessa raised the gun. Lily moved first. With a cry, she swung the bat toward her with all her strength. The bat hit Vanessa's wrist, and the gun skittered across the bathroom floor. James tackled Colin, crashing into the counter. Vanessa screamed in fury and lunged for the weapon. But Lily kicked it under the clawfoot tub before she could reach it. Police sirens blared outside. Lights flashed. James wrestled Colin to the ground. Vanessa turned to run, but the hallway filled with voices. "Police! Drop your weapons!" Within seconds, both Vanessa and Colin were handcuffed and shoved against the wall. Vanessa glared at Lily. "You ruined everything." Lily stood tall, trembling but proud. "You were never going to win." The Anderson estate felt hollow in the days that followed. The front gates remained chained shut. Yellow police tape crisscrossed the front steps, and the grand foyer, once meant to welcome guests with laughter and champagne, now held silence and shadows. The wedding that never was had become a crime scene. And the bride who had nearly destroyed a family was now behind bars. Lily Anderson sat curled up on the window seat in her room, staring out into the garden. Her mother's roses were beginning to bloom again. It was strange, she thought, how life kept moving, even when everything else had stopped. Downstairs, her father moved slowly through the house like a man learning to walk again. James Anderson hadn't spoken much since the night of the attack. Detective Harold Whitaker had come by several times, updating them on the investigation. Vanessa, real name confirmed as Vanessa Hill, was being held without bail. Colin Brooks had confessed to nearly everything, trying to reduce his sentence. Their plan had been meticulous, cold, calculated. James still hadn't looked at the photos they had found in Vanessa's hidden flash drive. He couldn't. Not yet. "Do you want me to make tea?" Lily asked from the kitchen one morning. James looked up from his newspaper, the same one he hadn't really been reading for the past half hour. "That would be nice," he said softly. She moved around the kitchen carefully, quietly, like she was afraid to disturb the walls. She had memorized how he liked it. Black tea, 1 sugar, just a touch of lemon. Her mother used to make it the same way. When she set the mug in front of him, he reached across the counter and placed his hand gently on hers. "You saved my life, Lily." She looked down, her voice barely audible. "I tried to tell you before." "I know," he said, "and I didn't listen. I wanted so badly to believe. To believe that I could have happiness again, that someone could fix everything I'd lost." He sighed deeply. "But I was blind, and I almost lost the one person who mattered most." She squeezed his hand back. "You didn't," she said. "I'm right here." That night, James finally sat with Lily in the living room and asked her to tell him everything. From the first day, she had felt something was off, from the moment she saw Vanessa in the car with Colin. The notebook, the fake stories, the threats, her fear, her silence. He listened. He didn't interrupt. When she finished, he didn't say a word. He simply pulled her close and held her the way he used to when she was small and afraid of thunder. "I promise you," he whispered, "we'll never let anyone lie their way into our family again." The next morning, the front page of the Boston Globe featured their story. Heiress nearly marries conwoman. Young daughter saves father's life. The article painted Lily as a hero, a child detective, a symbol of intuition and courage. James read it at the kitchen table and smiled for the first time in days. Carla Reyes, who had returned to help the family once the house was cleared, baked Lily her favorite oatmeal cookies and gave her a wink. "Told you that brain of yours was something special." Even Mrs. Edith Monroe, her teacher, came by after school with a bouquet of daisies and a stack of handwritten letters from her classmates, each one, thanking Lily for being brave, for standing up, for trusting her gut. Later that week, James invited Margaret over for dinner. They sat on the patio beneath soft string lights, sipping iced tea as birds chirped in the distance. "You always knew something was wrong," James said to his sister. "You trusted Lily when I didn't." Margaret smiled. "She didn't need me to believe her, James. She needed you." He nodded slowly, the guilt still lingering behind his eyes. "And I let her down." "No," Margaret said gently. "You're here. You fought for her when it mattered most. That's what counts." That weekend, James and Lily stood together in the garden. They planted 2 new rose bushes beside her mother's favorite spalter symbol. He said, "Of new beginnings. Not to forget the past, but to build something better from it." As they dug into the earth, Lily looked up at him. "Are we going to be okay now?" James wiped the sweat from his brow and looked at her. "We already are." For the first time in months, Lily slept through the night with her window open. The house no longer creaked from secrets. It breathed again with healing, with honesty, and with the bond of a father and daughter who had found their way back to each other. 1 year had passed since the day Lily Anderson stood in a church aisle and changed the course of her father's life. 12 months, 52 weeks since the wedding that never happened, since Vanessa Hill's mask fell away, revealing a woman who had built her life on betrayal and greed, and 52 weeks since Lily stepped forward and, with trembling hands and an unwavering heart, saved her father from a future built on lies. Now, the Anderson estate looked different. Gone were the cold, sharp edges that Vanessa had once tried to impose. The heavy drapes had been replaced with gauzy linen curtains that let the morning sun pour into the rooms. The stiff, formal dining chairs had been swapped for cushioned ones that invited long conversations and laughter. The piano in the music room was tuned again, and on Saturday mornings, Lily often played softly while her father read the paper. The house had come back to life. More importantly, so had the people in it. That spring day, the garden bloomed in full. Roses of every color climbed the trellises, wild tulips dotted the edges of the walkways, and fairy lights twisted through the hedges, even though the sun was still high. It was Lily's favorite time of year, when everything looked as if it had been freshly painted by the sky. She stood barefoot in the grass, wearing a soft pink sundress, watching her father arrange something near the old oak tree. He had been working in secret all morning. "Can I look yet?" she called, laughing. James Anderson straightened, brushing dirt from his hands. "Almost close your eyes, Lilybug." She covered her face with both hands and waited as he led her by the fingertips toward the tree. "Okay," he said softly. "Open them." She blinked at the sight. A picnic spread lay beneath the tree, her favorite foods, carefully prepared and placed on a gingham blanket. But more than that, a small crowd had gathered. Aunt Margaret, Mrs. Edith Monroe, Carla Reyes, and even Mr. Frank Delgado, the quiet investigator who had uncovered the truth so long ago. "What's all this?" she asked, stunned. James knelt beside her, eye level. "This is our second chance day," he said, his voice warm. "1 year ago today, you saved my life. You changed everything, and I don't ever want to let that go uncelebrated." Lily's face flushed pink. "Dad!" Margaret stepped forward, placing a small box in Lily's hands. "We all agreed you deserved something special." Inside the box was a silver compass necklace, its surface engraved with her initials. On the inside lid were the words, "Trust your direction. Love, Dad." James smiled. "So you always know where you're going, even when things feel uncertain." Lily wrapped her arms around his neck. "Thank you." As the afternoon sun cast long golden shadows across the yard, the group sat together, sharing stories and laughter. Edith Monroe brought lemon bars and a collection of articles about resilient children that she said Lily had inspired. Mr. Delgado kept mostly quiet, but every so often he'd glance at Lily with a proud smile, as if quietly acknowledging the strength she had shown in the most dangerous of moments. Later, as the sun began to dip, casting orange and violet across the sky, James sat beside Lily beneath the tree. "You seem lighter," she said, leaning her head on his shoulder. "I am," he answered honestly, "not because everything is perfect, but because we got through something dark, and we came out stronger." He looked at her. "I was chasing something I'd lost, trying to recreate a life that was already gone, but you reminded me that the life I had, the life I still have, is right here." Lily smiled, fingering the compass around her neck. "I used to think I couldn't protect you," James continued, "that after your mum passed, all I could do was keep the roof over our heads and keep things moving. But you protected me. You saw what I couldn't." "We protected each other," Lily whispered. James nodded. "That we did." The stars began to appear as the final guests packed up and said their goodbyes. Edith hugged Lily tightly, promising to visit more often. Margaret lingered, watching her brother with a soft, proud expression before she too waved goodbye from the gate. Inside, Lily and James cleaned up the last of the dishes. It was quiet now, peaceful in a way that felt deserved. As Lily rinsed a plate, she glanced toward her father. "Do you ever think about her?" "Vanessa?" he asked. "No," Lily said. "Mom." James dried his hands and leaned against the counter. "All the time," he said. "I think about how proud she'd be of you. I think about how much she'd love the person you're becoming." He looked at her seriously. "She always said you had her intuition and my stubbornness. Turns out, that's a pretty unstoppable combination." Lily laughed, setting down the last dish. Later that night, as James tucked her into bed, Lily looked up at him sleepily. "I'm glad we're still us." He brushed her hair from her forehead and kissed it gently. "Me too, Lilybug. That's the best part of this new beginning." And with that, the lights dimmed, the house settled, and peace finally returned to the Andersons built, not on perfection, but on truth, trust, and a love that had already withstood the storm. The early fall breeze rustled through the trees that lined the Anderson estate, carrying with it the scent of turning leaves and the soft hum of distant wind chimes. It was a Sunday afternoon like any other, peaceful and unremarkable in the best possible way. And for the Andersons, it marked a full year since things had started to feel normal. No court hearings, no news cameras, no locked bedroom doors or whispered conversations in the dark. Just quiet and safety and home. James Anderson sat on the back porch with a steaming cup of coffee, watching his daughter sketch in her journal beneath the old oak tree. Lily had grown a little taller in the past year, a little more confident too. Her laugh came more freely, and her shoulders no longer carried the invisible weight of fear. Every so often, James caught himself staring at her amazed, grateful. Not just for what she'd done, but for who she was becoming. Inside, the living room walls had changed. The stiff portraits and expensive art that Isabella once hung had been replaced with framed drawings Lily made. Photos of family hikes, goofy Halloween costumes, and messy pancake breakfasts were now proudly on display. The house had stopped pretending to be a showplace. It had become a home again. "Dad!" Lily called from the yard. "Can I show you something?" James stood and made his way across the grass, taking the small notebook she offered him. Inside was a pencil sketch of the two of them on the porch, mugs in hand, a blanket draped over their knees. In the background, the garden bloomed. "I drew it from memory," Lily said. "From last winter, when we didn't go anywhere, just sat there for hours." He studied the picture for a long moment. "It's perfect," he said, his voice soft. "Not really," Lily shrugged. "I messed up the hands." "No," he corrected. "It's perfect because you remembered it." They sat under the oak tree together, letting the sunlight warm their faces. A few minutes later, Margaret pulled up in her familiar silver car, holding a grocery bag and a warm smile. "I brought cider," she called, "and those pumpkin muffins Lily likes." "Fall has officially begun," James joked, waving her in. Carla Reyes appeared at the doorway with an apron and a laugh. "I'll put the kettle on." The porch became a quiet gathering place filled with soft conversation, the occasional clink of mugs, and laughter that felt earned. As the afternoon wore on, Lily asked the question that had been lingering in the back of her mind for weeks. "Dad, do you ever think we'll have someone else? In our family, I mean, like someone new?" James paused before answering. "I think about it sometimes," he said truthfully. "But only if it ever feels right, and only if they love you as much as I do." Lily leaned into his shoulder. "So, not someone like Isabella?" "No," he said gently. "Not like Isabella never again?" Margaret chimed in from her chair, sipping cider. "Families aren't built in a day or on paper. They're built in moments, in all the little things people do when they think no one's watching." James nodded. "And in the way they stay even when things fall apart," Lily smiled. That night, after the guests had gone and the porch lights glowed softly, James tucked Lily into bed. The silver compass she had received a year earlier still hung around her neck, a reminder that even small voices could lead the way. As he sat at the edge of her bed, Lily looked up at him. "You know what I think?" she asked. "What's that?" "I think family is the people who protect each other, who listen, who don't give up, even when things are scary." James blinked back tears. "That's exactly what it is." He leaned down and kissed her forehead. "I'm proud of you, Lilybug, more than you'll ever know." She yawned and pulled the covers up to her chin. "I love you, Dad. I love you too," he whispered. "Always." And as he turned off the light and gently closed her door, the house once again settled into a peaceful hush free of secrets, full of trust, and held together by something far stronger than any lie. It was held together by love. Unconditional, unshakable, real. The kind that doesn't need to be spoken to be known. The kind that stays. One of the most powerful lessons in Lily Anderson's story is the enduring strength of intuition and unconditional love. Sometimes, the quietest voices carry the deepest truths. Lily's courage reminds us that even in the face of doubt, fear, and dismissal, standing up for what's right can change everything. As we grow older, it becomes easy to overlook the wisdom of the young or silence our own instincts, but this story shows us the cost of doing so. Trust is not about appearances, and love is not about grand gestures. It's found in the simple, unwavering commitment to protect those we care about, to listen even when it's inconvenient, and to believe even when it challenges what we want to be true. For older adults, this tale is a gentle reminder that it's never too late to reevaluate who we welcome into our lives, and that healing often begins with choosing honesty over comfort. Real family, the kind that endures, isn't defined by perfection, but by those who show up, stand strong, and stay when it matters most.